This will be very, very quick because I'm sitting in my car. I am a person who likes coffee late at night, so I'm getting my 9:06 East Coast coffee. I just wanted to give you a quick catch up on what's going on. So, if you didn't watch, hi Gilbert's dad. If you didn't watch the live that I did with Nick today, Nick Paro on Banner and Backbone, it's a little bit longer, but what I'm doing basically is I'm going and listening to all the audio tapes, audio files of going Maxwell. I'm going back and I'm retranscribing them. I get that they have transcription already, but I'm going back and retranscribing them because I'm a transcriber by trade. That's my job. And I'm catching things that their transcriber missed, that they translated incorrectly, portions that they couldn't hear, but I can hear. Like this is my bread and butter, and this is what I do. So, a couple of things. The reason they didn't just provide the transcripts, the reason they gave us the audio too, just so you're aware, is a manipulation tactic. If you listen to the audio of Ghislaine Maxwell, she's a great actress. She's emotional. She sounds very empathetic. She sounds very relatable, and that's on purpose. The reason why we have that is for that reason. Otherwise, they would have just given us the transcript. We don't need the audio. We don't need both. So they're doing that for a reason. Just FYI, if you listen to them. The way it's broken down is there's 2 days. Hi, Sue. From Queensland. I wrote a story about Queensland. I hope you get to read it someday. Um, so the depositions are broken down into 2 days. Each day is like 6 parts, right? So it's a very long day. What I'm doing is I'm going through and retranscribing the audio in the sections that they separated them out as portions of the conversation. So I went over section 1 with Nick today, and you can find that on the Banner and Backbone page. I also, put it in my notes so you can find it there. It's a little bit long. So, I don't know if there's a transcript in it that you can like find the portions that you want to listen to. I don't know. I'm not super techie. But I went through the first portion today, which had a lot to do with her relationship with Epstein. So much of it is like claiming she barely knew him. They never hung out. She never went to his house. She didn't have a key. He lived in this bajillion-dollar mansion in New York City, and she lived in a 10 by 10 apartment. She was poor and meek and meager and sad and weak and, poor me, poor me, poor me, poor me, right? It's a lot of that. Very interesting. Her discussion about her father, whether or not she thinks he was involved with intelligence. She kind of does, but she can't say that she does, but she does say that she does. It's complicated. So anyway, I went over all that today. That's in the audio, but what I'm going to do, sorry, that's in the video with Nick. What I'm also going to do for each of these, as much as I can, as much as my brain can handle it, is I'm going to type up a little rundown of what I found in that day's portion of the deposition, the things that stuck out to me, which is what I'm talking about with Nick, and I'll continue to do so. But that way, if you don't have time to watch the whole thing, I'll have kind of a rundown that's the basics, the things that stuck out, the like wow moments that threw me. And again, I'll say it again. This was the number one. The number one was she said that Epstein had a heart condition which prevented him from being able to have sexual intercourse. And then she says, which would have been bad enough and like laughable enough, but then she said, paraphrasing, which is really great because I also have a medical condition that prevents me from having sexual intercourse. And it's like, we're not stupid. Like 100,000 women or 1,000 women who came forward are not stupid and they're not lying. So anyway, that was the big like wowza moment. So anyway, tonight's portion that I'm working on, I'll do a write-up of last night's, but the part that I'm transcribing right now is the finances, which I find more interesting. I find as the reason why the Epstein files aren't being released, because I think it has a greater effect on a greater number of people and like the economy at large. So a lot of what's being discussed tonight is how Epstein got his money. And if she's telling the truth, I have a lot of questions. She basically says that his job was to get stolen money back. So let's say you were involved in some shady business dealing and somebody took your money. Epstein's job would be to be hired by a client to go get that money back, and then he would receive a fee from this. She gave an example of El Chapo. And then she said, this is hypothetical. This is all hypothetical. But she was giving an example of like a crime ring stealing money from another crime ring, and he had to go get the money back, and then he was paid several $1,000,000 from that. And then she said it's hypothetical. She kept saying that, which makes me think there was probably some crime rings that he worked for that he had to go get the money back, and that's what made her think of that example, or he actually did get money back from El Chapo. I don't know. Another interesting thing, and this is something that has been, hi Wendy, another thing that has been very confusing since the beginning is why Leslie Wexner would give Epstein his house, right? The biggest house in New York. Just put his name on the tab and walked away. According to Ghislaine, it was because of the work that Epstein did for Leslie Wexner. He then basically paid Jeffrey Epstein with a house. Instead of like handing him a paycheck, he handed him a house. I'm sure there's some tax avoidance with that. But B, like, what the hell kind of work was he doing for Leslie Wexner that he was being paid almost $100 million? Like, how? Like, he was his client, but like, what kind of work were they doing that he was making that much money assisting someone else? And that was just one thing. Like, Leslie Wexner gave him other things. He had a house on Leslie Wexner's property in Ohio. He had this massive apartment building on 66th Street that his brother, quote unquote, bought, but there's no receipt for. All owned by Leslie Wexner. Like, how did he owe Jeffrey that much money that he's just like giving him all these properties? So this is literally like, I'm not even halfway through today's audio and transcript, and there's so much in it. I'm just like highlighting it to go back and remember. And then talking about like Leon Black and some of these associates who all had shady dealings. So I will pick that up, not tomorrow. I don't think I'll be done with it tomorrow, but in a couple of days I'll sit down with Nick and we'll kind of go over the next steps. But it is really shady stuff, even if she's telling the truth. And you know when she's not telling the truth. I'm starting to pick up on little indicators when she's not telling the truth, and I have to go back and look at what those are. But like, I was like, I have seen this 3 times now, and there are 3 things that I know that I have receipts for that I can show this isn't true. So that is her give. That's her tell, right? I now know what her tell is, that I can start to look at it in different areas. And this is just a transcriber thing. Like, you start to pick up on what people's ticks are. And so also, and for Todd Blanche, same thing. He has tells as far as when he starts to divert the conversation so that he's not, when she starts to say something and he's like, no, we're not going to talk about that. He has a little tell that diverts the conversation that he starts to do. So anyway, I will begin to pick up on some of these things with Nick when we go into it with another one of these explanation lives. And then at the end of those, there's question answer, which is, I think, really helpful. So if you have certain things that you're wondering about based on, like, let's say it's a financial conversation, you have questions about Epstein's finances, you can just pop it in the chat and be like, Q, question, and then we'll answer it at the end. So I hope that that's helpful. I'm being super nerdy about all of this, so I hope that that's helpful. I think on some level it's filling a little hole in my heart to be able to do this kind of nerdy research work. Maybe I miss school. I don't know. So anyway, I hope you all have a great night. I'm going to go back and start doing a write-up, and then I'll post something later tonight that's kind of just a basic summary of what I talked about with Nick that kind of runs down what we went over today in the first portion and the relationship side of Epstein and Maxwell and everything she denied and everything she doesn't know and everything she claims never to have heard of or known or been around, which is, super helpful. So, okay, that is all. Have a great night, guys.